Potential. Welcome to level -1 of RPG Potential. I'm Max. You may remember me from level 2 of RPG Potential. And in this episode, I'm talking with Kody about GNOMONIC. Kody, as you know, runs this channel and has just launched a Kickstarter for his and his team's game GNOMONIC, along with releasing a demo on Steam and itch.io. And as we speak, their Kickstarter is about to reach 50% of its funding goal, which is very, very exciting. So Kody, welcome to your own YouTube channel.
I'm happy to be here.
Wow. So Kody, tell us, what RPGs did you grow up playing?
I grew up playing mostly Nintendo RPGs growing up. So the one that really got me started and hooked on RPGs was the Generation 4 of the Pokemon games, Diamond, Pearl, and Platinum. So like those were the first RPGs I ever played, I think. I think I might have played some earlier Pokemon Game Boy Advance games, but I didn't really like finish them or anything. They were just kind of like there. So I played Generation 4 the most, and then eventually after I found out about the internet and how to use that, I figured out how to play the fan translation for Mother 3, and that was when I was still younger. It was pretty shortly after I had played Diamond and Pearl and Platinum. So I had played Mother 3, and I tried to play Earthbound, but I remember not being able to get the SNES emulator to work for some reason, or maybe my computer just couldn't do it. I don't know. But yeah, so I played Mother 3, and in between both of those, I played Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door, which also was really influential on me as an RPG too. So those were kind of all the big ones that I played.
Well, I got to tell you, as someone who I think grew up maybe a little bit earlier on you got in at the right time. You kind of got the last helicopter out of Vietnam there, because that those are some RPGs that where you got at the last end of the golden era. So I'm very happy. I'm very fortunate there. And do you feel like those obviously some of those inspired you? Is that how you feel going into this, that you're bringing a lot of that into this?
Absolutely, yeah. I think probably all of those games that I just listed are all pretty heavy inspirations for GNOMONIC, and I think it's kind of obvious, honestly. But as somebody who put it all together, I think it's obvious which parts were influenced by which by which games. But yeah, there were so many different ways all through all of those games. Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, Mother 3, and Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door influenced the game. Yeah.
So with those games, would you say that the story of those games more inspired you, or the general like atmosphere, or the battle system? Like, what did you feel was most important to you, like bringing that inspiration in?
With the battle systems in those games, I really felt that the turn-based kind of thing was, it was fun when I was younger, but as I've gotten older, I've started to like it less, I guess. I've started to appreciate more action games, and that's why we kind of went in that direction for the gameplay in GNOMONIC as it pertains to the story and the characters and that sort of thing. The themes of all three of those games all kind of mixed together into this game too. So I think for Paper Mario: The Thousand-Year Door too, there's like a strong emphasis on these of shadows kind of being the antagonists in those games. I don't know if that had some kind of like deep psychological impact on me or something, but like ever since that game, I think I've always been interested in, that kind of aesthetic, I guess. So, that kind of influenced me in that way, I guess. And also games like Pokemon XD Gale of Darkness, which I don't really like that game that much now, actually. I feel like I've kind of grown out of it in a way, but when I was little, I liked that game a lot. And a lot of those games also had that shadow aesthetic too. A lot of these games in the 2000s, I guess, you had that kind of theme going on. So I think that also kind of played into a lot of how I thought about GNOMONIC.
And so you just brought up the battle system at GNOMONIC, which I wanna ask you about. But first, maybe you should just talk about GNOMONIC in general. So what can you tell us more about GNOMONIC?
Yes. So the game is, an action RPG that focuses on collecting things around the world to kind of improve how you play. And the whole game is, most of it is traditionally watercolored. Other parts are done digitally, but most of it is all physical watercolor art that's scanned in using for anybody that is from Mother Forever, all those scanners that I got to scan things for Mother Forever I originally got them for GNOMONIC. So those scanners, those same scanners scanned in all the watercolor art, and they're edited afterwards and put into the game so that we can make them into sprites. GNOMONIC uses all of those different watercolor sprites and all of that, the battle system and the story combined together to make something that has something fun for everyone, I think.
So you mentioned the art style of GNOMONIC, the battle system. What you have not talked about is the story. So can you tell us a little bit
Yes.
about that?
So the story is, to put it very straightforwardly, it's about a girl who finds a game. A game is sent to her, and she's looking for a different game, and she finds this game that is called GNOMONIC. And when she tries to play this game, some strange things happen. During that game, she encounters some strange characters, and you as the player also encounter these characters too. And it seems like they might know somebody is playing this game, or maybe they're talking to Juno, who is the main character. You'll have to play it and find out. So that's about the gist of the story. I think it's better you play the rest of it out to see how it all goes for yourself. The demo is free, by the way, so be sure to try it if you're interested in all.
Yes, it has a lot of different layers to it. There's multiple layers going on, which I'm very interested in. If anyone's played my game, they know that I'm interested in that too, and I'm very, very interested in that part of GNOMONIC. But I do have a specific question,
Sure.
and you have actually raised this question yourself about GNOMONIC. It's on the game's Steam page. It's on the Kickstarter
Yeah.
page. This question is asked within the game itself. And since you're asking everyone else this question in the spirit of this reverse interview, I'm now going to ask you this question, and I assume you know where I'm going with this,
Yeah.
right? Okay,
Yep.
so here's the question: what is a gnomon?
What is a gnomon? This question has to do with specifically the prophecy that is brought up in the game, which is actually, let me look up exactly what the wording is real
You have
quick.
to look up the prophecy.
Yes.
Are we going to cut this part out or leave it in?
So the prophecy is light will unite with shade and free the gnomon. So what is a gnomon? Seems to ask, what is a gnomon in that prophecy? And throughout the game, it's a question that you'll probably be asking often. And, maybe you'll get some clues as to what light and shade are throughout, but I'd rather somebody figure that out for themselves. And as they play the game, maybe you'll come to that conclusion.
Okay, you have almost successfully dodged the question.
Yeah.
So I had never heard of this word before. So the game asked, "What is this?" So I looked it
Yeah,
up, and obviously, people can look it up for
of
themselves.
course. Yeah,
But the way I looked at it is a gnomon is basically a device that converts time into space.
that it is.
Is, is,
Yeah.
is that how I should be looking at it?
That is definitely one interpretation of it. Yeah, absolutely.
And that it's really, I've never heard of this concept before. It's fascinating, and there's such a thing as a gnomonic projection, and that's
Yes.
about converting a sphere or a circle into a square. Obviously, traditionally a sphere, a circle represents time, and a square represents space. So that is a fascinating idea, and I love the way that you and your team are playing with these ideas in a lot of different ways in the demo, with this and beyond this, and seeing where that goes is something that has really drawn me into this world and makes me really feel like I need to see where it goes.
I'm happy to hear that. Yeah. All of these themes are themes we've thought a lot about, so I'm glad. I'm very glad.
So speaking of that, how did you and your team first come up with the idea for Mnemonic?
So, I thought of the idea for this game because originally well, it actually came to me during a literature class in college. We were going over, it's a short story by James Joyce called The Sisters, and he's an Irish poet. So, in that short story, the word gnomon is actually used at the beginning, and I just kind of became fascinated with it ever since then. And eventually, I used that idea from that word to build a whole visual novel out of it called Gnomonic. And that visual novel was for a poetry class, actually. So, my poetry teacher is very cool. Her name is Billy R. Tadros. Well, she's not my poetry professor anymore. I've long since graduated, but she's awesome. And please check out Billy R. Tadros' work. She allowed me to make Gnomonic the visual novel back then in poetry class. And after that, I wanted to build on it more because, I mean, it was basically like a test run of a lot of ideas that I had, but it wasn't really anything, wasn't really very it wasn't really the scope of everything I really wanted to do. So I wanted to build on it more, and eventually I applied for like a research grant in school for literature. And as a part of that grant, I was going to research a few games, interactions between itself and its audience. That was the specific research goal. Was I wanted to look more into the power dynamics between an audience and the game. So Gnomonic was originally a part of that project, and I was given a grant to put money towards Gnomonic from that. So you'll see my college and Billy R. Tadros in the credits because of that. So it all stemmed from that. It all started there, and I met Jay Spins, who does the art for the game, in college, and we both combined a lot of our ideas that we had. She had so many different kinds of characters, and all of the art that she's done with watercolor. We combined that with a lot of my ideas and some of my knowledge of programming at the time to make a lot of the first versions of Gnomonic in 2019. So that's how it all began.
Wait, did I hear that you're actually doing academic research and this was like something that kind of came out of that?
Yes, yes.
Wow, that is awesome. I love that because usually a game will come out of, let's say, market forces, right? And this is coming out of a whole academic world. So
Yeah.
that I do get a different feeling from the game, and maybe that is partially why. Can I ask you what grade did you get on the assignment?
Dr. Tadros was pretty forgiving with most assignments, thankfully. So she gave me a good grade for that one.
Wow. Okay. Well, that's a great start right there. So we're already like on our way here. So let me ask you this while we're on this train of thought. What experiences in your life have been inspirations for you?
I talked about it a little bit earlier, but I think the experience of finding and playing Mother 3 was probably the most influential to me, like getting into games at all, because Mother 3, the fan translation in particular, it was so inspiring for me to see a group of people work with ideas that were from somewhere else entirely and kind of shape them for an audience that would have like no context for it otherwise. And I find the practice of localizing so fascinating because of that. And that's probably the reason why I really wanted to start doing a lot of localization at first before I kind of just I don't have any more time to really do it anymore, but I still find it very, very interesting, translation and localization. And the Mother 3 fan translation is definitely the beginning of that, because I think the way that a team formed around it of fans doing it all themselves and working with those ideas and trying to get it out for everybody else to try, and getting into my hands as, I was only like 9 or 10 at the time, and I didn't know anything about Earthbound or anything else, but I had played that game, and after finding out so much more about how it got to me, it was so inspiring, I think. It really made me realize how much work goes into games generally.
Are you talking about like the technical aspect and all the work and collaboration involved? Are you talking about
Yes, All of it. So the writing, the technicals, all of it. It's not something I ever thought about until that time I had played the localization, because I realized all these people had to work on a localization for me to play it, and then also all the people there were also there's everybody that made the game originally too, that I had just never considered as much until that point in my life. And I'm glad I realized that when I was, younger. It's something I always think about now whenever I play a game, is the developer behind it.
I love that. It definitely makes it more interesting, right? To know, to see a little bit behind the curtain and think about not only what's going on, but who might have made it. Is that sort of the train of thought?
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely. And I think it's something that's so important for everybody to do, honestly, when they play a game, is, it's always good to consider how a game reached you and who made it and what kinds of intention there was behind it.
Definitely. So bringing the conversation back to RPGs, let me ask you, what aspects of a game do you think define it being an RPG? And would you consider mnemonic an RPG?
Really, I come back to the conclusion we kind of reached during our discussion. I think it really has to do with the world that it takes place in and how you interact with that world. I think when you're interacting with it in a particular way, it kind of becomes an RPG. And why Mnemonic is considered an RPG, I mean, it's kind of difficult for me to say. I guess the original intention was kind of to make it an RPG, but, we weren't just trying to stick to that definition, I guess. It just kind of happened the way it is. I think the way you interact with the world in Mnemonic does very much make it an RPG, and the progression of things in the game too also kind of make it like pretty standard action RPG, I would say.
I could definitely feel that with the demo. Its setting and the structure of its world is very interesting. In terms of Mnemonic as an RPG, the one thing that's obviously going to set it apart from, let's say, the cookie cutter formula of an RPG, one of the things, there are many things, one of them would be the battle system. It's a pretty original battle system, and it definitely takes some extra work to come up with this original thing, perfect it, like smooth over all the edges, which you and your team have done. So it's an interesting battle system, and it does throw unexpected things at you, and I would say it's very fun, but that takes extra work. So let me ask you, as someone who loves RPGs, what drove you to go to that extra length to create this whole new battle system?
I always wanted to do a more action oriented kind of system, and the whole menuing aspect of RPGs was something that I felt like could be improved somehow. Just going with a full action system, that was the way around it, I think, for me. So with this battle system, we kind of came up with it by considering what kinds of things we wanted to do in the rest of the game, and also considering what we thought might be fun to mess with in this game. Originally, the battle system was actually going to be more like open, and there was movement involved in it too. That was in like the first versions of the game before our lead programmer came on and helped me. He one of my middle school friends, Paxton. He's the third member of our team besides me and J-Spins, and he came on and really helped me form a more concrete vision of the battle system. And a lot of the ideas you see in the battle system are a lot of his ideas. We blended all of that together into what it is now, and I'm happy that it's fun to play. And I love menuing in RPGs, but I like it more when you press a button and you can have a more immediate reaction. I think it's more fun, I guess, for me. So that's also part of the reason why we went with an action system like this.
Well, I have to say, great job to Paxton, great job to J-Spins. The art and the battle system, they worked out really well.
Yes, they're awesome.
Let me ask you, when you play an RPG, now I think I kind of know the answer. Well, maybe I do. Maybe I'm not sure if I know the answer or not from playing Mnemonic, but when you play an RPG, do you prefer playing as protagonists who have a defined personality, or protagonists who are more of like an avatar for the player?
Well, I actually like something that's somewhere in between. I don't like one or the other. And I think the protagonists that kind of do both are some of the more interesting ones. I think when they have a defined personality, that is more difficult to glean by just, doing very simple things in the game, I guess. If you're able to find out more about their personality by exploring the world, I think that's the best kind of protagonist. So I guess I do lean more towards having a defined personality because of that. But I could see how some people could play a game like that and not interact with very much and then not find out very much about the protagonist because of that. So, there's a trade-off there.
And there are multiple protagonists in Gnomonic, right? And or I could say there are multiple main characters. I don't know if all of them would be protagonists. And they each kind of have they each have a different take on that, which I think is interesting.
They definitely are different takes on those kinds of protagonists.
So when you play a game, how much do you value the relationship between game mechanics and story?
I do find it important that the game mechanics have something meaningful to say that is involved with the story. I think that's the best. Those are the best kinds, at least. And when a battle system can bring out something important in the story, it just gives it a lot more depth than it would otherwise have. So I like that.
Do you have a favorite character archetype or a job role that you usually gravitate towards?
I love builds based around luck.
Wow. So you like luck builds and you still enjoy RPGs? I mean, I think that would make it like extremely painful to play them.
Yeah, kind of. Yeah, but sometimes it's just really fun to have a character that gets like crits all the time. So I think that's pretty fun. I like the chance of it, It's especially fun in tabletop RPGs.
Oh, okay. Yeah, I can see how that would cause a lot of drama.
Yeah.
So what advice would you give to anyone out there who's thinking of making their own game?
I think the best advice I could give is, just start. All you have to do to get started is, take a look at any kind of game engine you're even remotely interested in. Make some art in MS Paint and, drag it in there and get it going. It's just so easy to get started now. You just gotta find a game engine you're interested in.
So what I'm hearing is just get started, just get something going and eventually get your middle school childhood friend to come in and like clean up all the programming.
Yeah, maybe. I mean, have some friends come on and help you too.
So that is great advice. Thank you, Kody, for that. And thank you for creating Gnomonic to you and your team. Where can we go to learn more about it and support the Kickstarter?
So you can head to the Kickstarter page to learn everything about the game that's on every other page. And also there will be links to download the demo there and everything else. You can learn more about our team and about the different aspects of the game. And you can see all the backer rewards there too. So check out the Kickstarter page. It'll be in the description. Thanks for listening, and thanks to Max Ponoroff of Starstruck Hands of Time for hosting this episode. I'm Kody, and this has been RPG Potential.